Have you ever noticed something strange about the birds that visit your feeder? They fly in confidently, they head straight toward the food, and then they stop. Sometimes they land on a nearby branch. Sometimes they cling to a fence or the top of a shrub. They look around, tilt their heads, and wait. A few seconds later, they finally fly down to eat. At first glance, it seems like hesitation. Maybe they're being cautious. Maybe they're simply deciding which seed they want. But what if neither explanation is true? What if those few silent seconds are actually one of the most important survival decisions a bird makes every single day? Scientists have spent decades studying how small birds survive in a world where danger can appear without warning. Unlike humans, birds don't have the luxury of making mistakes. One poor decision can be their last. That's why every visit to a feeder begins long before their feet touch the perch, long before the first seed is picked up, long before they trust the food. They are studying something else, something most backyard bird lovers never realize they're being judged on. Because the bird isn't asking, "Is the feeder safe?" It's asking, "Is everything around the feeder safe enough for me to survive the next 30 seconds?" And the answer to that question depends on far more than the food itself. From where you're standing, the feeder probably looks perfectly safe. The seed is fresh, the water is clean, the yard is quiet. But a bird doesn't see your backyard the way you do. Long before it decides to land, it begins collecting information from every direction. It notices the shape of nearby branches, the distance to the closest tree, the position of fences, and the amount of open space between the feeder and potential shelter. Why? Because every meal comes with an escape plan. Biologists have discovered that many small songbirds spend more time evaluating their surroundings than actually eating. Their brains are constantly balancing two competing needs: finding enough food to survive and avoiding becoming food themselves. That careful pause on a nearby branch isn't a sign of fear alone. It's the final stage of a rapid survival assessment. Can I reach cover if a hawk appears? Is there enough room to take off quickly? Has anything in this area changed since my last visit? Even a small difference, a newly parked vehicle, trimmed bushes, or an unfamiliar object in the yard can be enough to delay a landing. To us, these changes seem harmless. To a bird, they may mean the difference between another peaceful meal and the last flight it ever takes. And yet, even when everything around the feeder appears safe, there is one final detail the bird still hasn't evaluated, one that many people unknowingly influence every single day. Tweet voi. Fun 3 c'est la dirm twist do teen cor video. Sau khi người xem hier chim đang đánh giá môi trường, giờ họ sẽ phát hiện rằng đối tượng chim quan sát nhiều nhất lại chính là con người. Đây là cách tongue retention rut toad. If you think birds are watching the feeder, you're only seeing half the picture. In reality, many birds spend just as much time watching the person who fills it. It sounds surprising, but over weeks and months, backyard birds begin recognizing patterns. They notice when someone steps outside every morning, where that person usually stands, and even whether their movements are calm or unpredictable. To a bird, consistency is reassuring. A familiar routine means fewer surprises. An unpredictable one demands caution. Behavioral studies have shown that many bird species are remarkably good at recognizing individual humans. They don't simply react to people in general. They learn from repeated experiences, remembering which individuals have disturbed them in the past and which have never posed a threat. That memory quietly shapes every future visit. This is why the same bird may land almost immediately when one person is nearby, yet hesitate much longer when someone unfamiliar walks into the yard. It's not judging your intentions. It's comparing today's situation with everything it has learned before. Trust in the bird's world isn't given all at once. It's built one peaceful encounter at a time. And once that trust exists, something even more fascinating begins to happen. The bird stops relying only on what it sees and starts paying attention to what the other birds are doing first. Have you ever wondered why one bird lands first and suddenly several others follow? It often looks like a coincidence, but in nature, It rarely is. For many backyard birds, every landing sends a message. When the first chickadee settles comfortably on a feeder and begins eating without alarm, nearby birds are watching. They aren't simply waiting for their turn. They're gathering information from someone who has already taken the risk. Scientists call this social information, the ability of animals to learn by observing the choices of others instead of discovering everything through their own experience. It's an incredibly efficient survival strategy. Why expose yourself to danger if another bird can test the situation first? A calm bird suggests the area is probably safe. A bird that suddenly takes off, freezes, or gives an alarm call tells a completely different story. Within seconds, dozens of tiny decisions ripple through the flock. One bird's confidence can encourage others to land. One bird's fear can empty an entire feeder. That's why the first visitor each morning often plays the most important role. It isn't simply looking for breakfast. Without realizing it, that small bird becomes the first voice the flock listens to. And yet, even after every signal appears safe, there is still one final test that every bird must pass before its feet touch the feeder. A test controlled by instincts far older than any backyard or bird feeder ever built. By the time a bird finally lands on your feeder, it has already answered dozens of silent questions. Is the area familiar? Are there escape routes? Have other birds shown signs of danger? Is the human nearby behaving as expected? Only when every piece of information fits together does the bird make its final decision. This isn't hesitation. It's evolution at work. For millions of years, the ancestors of today's backyard birds survived because they were careful. The individuals that rushed into danger too quickly often didn't live long enough to pass on their genes. Over countless generations, natural selection rewarded those that paused, observed, and chose the safest moment to act. That ancient instinct still lives inside every sparrow, finch, chickadee, and cardinal that visits your yard today. Even though your feeder offers an easy meal, their brains haven't forgotten the world they evolved in, a world where a hidden hawk, a stalking cat, or a sudden movement could mean the difference between life and death. So, the pause you see isn't a sign that birds are afraid of your feeder. It's a reminder that survival has always favored patience over speed. And perhaps that's the most remarkable part of all. Every quiet landing in your backyard carries the wisdom of millions of years of evolution compressed into just a few careful seconds before tiny feet finally touch the perch. The next time you notice a bird waiting on a nearby branch before landing at your feeder, resist the urge to think of it as hesitation. What you're witnessing is something far more remarkable. In just a few quiet seconds, that tiny bird is drawing on instincts shaped over millions of years. It is reading the landscape, remembering past experiences, watching the movements around it, and weighing one simple question: is it safe enough to take this chance? Only when the answer is yes, does it spread its wings one last time and glide toward the feeder. Perhaps that's what makes backyard birds so captivating. Every visit is a reminder that trust is never automatic. It is earned through consistency, patience, and countless peaceful encounters that slowly convince a wild animal your backyard is a place where it can survive. So the next time a bird finally lands, remember that it isn't just accepting the food you've offered. For one brief moment, it has accepted the safety you've quietly created. If you enjoyed discovering the hidden science behind this everyday behavior, subscribe to Backyard Bird World and join us as we uncover more fascinating stories hidden in the lives of the birds just outside your window. Until next time, keep looking a little closer because nature always has another secret waiting to be discovered.